Today, let's make cherry cheesecake mead. We're gonna take you through all the steps, including how we chose all the things that we chose and what we did to arrive at this beautiful specimen. Let's get started.
I'm a little excited.
I'm super excited. We actually made a carrot cake mead and asked people what they would want to see. And cheesecake came up a lot. Not specifically cherry, but it's my favorite kind of cheesecake.
It's our favorite type of cheesecake.
That makes it that much better. I did not know that it was your favorite. Otherwise, I would have said it's our favorite. But anyway, so it is a mead, which means there's honey in it. We are going to be using Kirkland wildflower honey. You can get this at Costco. I think you can actually get this from Amazon now too.
Yes.
And we're gonna weigh out 2 pounds of this honey to start with.
Today we are brewing in a bucket.
That's right. Why a bucket? Because we got stuff going in there and we might end up with more than a gallon or more than 5 liters. So we wanna make sure that we,
Sorry, I still had sanitizer liquid in there.
So we wanna make sure that we have enough room for everything and for the expansion that inevitably happens with fermentation. Now, if you have wildflower honey, if you have orange blossom honey, if you have even clover honey, I think would work just fine for this. I would save the really special stuff for something else because there's gonna be so many flavors going into this, it's gonna get lost. So don't waste it, but use a good quality honey. This is a good quality honey. Okay, so 2 pounds. Notice, we're not heating it, we're not boiling it, we're not adulterating it in any way. We're just adding it to a bucket very slowly because it's honey. So we got our honey in the bucket. Next, this would not be,
Let's start taking notes just so we don't get ahead of ourselves.
But that's not good television.
I know.
Whoa, don't do that.
Don't do that.
All right, I'm gonna take notes. I'll be back in a sec. Next, before we get to anything else, I wanna hydrate some of our yeast. So for that, I need a Pyrex container. You don't need a Pyrex container. It just works really well. And we're just gonna dump a little bit of our water in, which we have 96 ounces of water, by the way. People always ask us how much water. It's water to a gallon, but in this case we have a 2 gallon bucket, and I didn't mark where 1 gallon is on this bucket.
But we did measure out our 96 ounces of water, so there you go.
So it's gonna be close. It's okay. Don't fret. It's not a big deal. I just said fret. I can't believe that.
I've got up to do.
That's Derica's word.
Excellent.
For our yeast, I'm going to be using Lalvin 71 Beast, also known as Lalvin 71B. I think it's actually the other way around, but I don't care because I call this the Beast. Why do I call this the Beast? Because it chews through almost anything. This is a really, really solid yeast in our environment. Your environment may vary. If you're much colder than Florida, Lalvin D47 is probably the better option because it does better in cooler climates where 71B does better in warmer climates. But otherwise, they're both really good yeasts. But anyway, I like this one for this because it enhances fruity flavors. It's also a low nutrient need yeast. It doesn't need a lot of nitrogen, but we got stuff that's gonna have some nutrients in it, most likely enough. So yeah, that. But anyway, so I'm putting the half packet in. I just always happen to have a half packet of yeast laying around, except when I open a new one. Nobody seems to notice when I open new ones. They always notice when I have a half packet. What we're doing is we're just hydrating that yeast. We're not really making a starter or anything like that. We're just making sure it's alive, more or less. But I know this packet's alive, so it's kind of superfluous. But I'm doing it anyway. Do you have to? No. You can just dump it right in. But not yet. Not yet. Okay, next. It wouldn't be cherry cheesecake mead without cherries. These happen to be Oregon specialty fruit, dark sweet cherries, whole pitted cherries, and heavy syrup. Now, before anybody freaks out about the whole pits, Derica pointed something out to me. They're canned, which means they were heated and cooked with the pits in them, which means any pit stuff that might be bad is already in there. I'm not pitting them, is basically what I'm getting at.
Further research shows that as long as the pits aren't damaged or cracked, they're not going to affect your brew, so it's okay.
And if they're all mashed up and cracked, they could make it bitter. Yeah. That's the point. I'm betting at least 2 are cracked in each can. It's inevitable with the way processing works.
What it is.
Now, I actually did a little bit of math on this. That's why we're using 2 pounds of the honey instead of 3. And I'll get to that math in a second as soon as I get these cherries in here. She thought I was going to splash them all over the place. Come on. I'm a little better than that.
In the past.
Before I put the others in, I'm gonna get the calculator the teacher said I would never have handy. And I'm going to calculate approximately what the gravity these cans of cherries should add. So this is a hypothetical original gravity once we get to that, but it should be pretty close. So there's 3 servings in a container. People ask this all the time. That's why I'm doing this, so that I can show you how to calculate what your OG would be from 1 can of these, but I'm gonna multiply it by 3 because we're using 3. So there's 3 servings per can, right? Doesn't matter what the serving size is. There's 3 servings. That's the important thing. Go all the way down to total sugars. This is 31 grams. So 31 grams times 3 servings. That means there's 93 grams of sugars in this can. 93 grams divided by 454, which is the number of grams in a pound. I use the metric and imperial system back and forth because some things are easier to do in metric and some things I just do them in the American system because that's just how I grew up, okay? So when I divide those, I get 0.204. That means we have 0.204 pounds of sugar. Well, if you've been watching our show, you know that sugar, 1 pound of sugar in a gallon of must gives you 0.046 gravity. So I multiply that by 0.046 and I get 0.009, so 9 points. So it would be, if I took just this, added it to water, to a gallon, it would be 1.009 gravity. Does that make sense? So because I'm using 3 cans, they're gonna add 27 points of gravity. Well, here's the other thing. 2 pounds of honey, because honey is 0.035 gravity, so 2 pounds of that in a gallon would be 0.070. So 0.070 plus 0.027 is 1.0997. Just about spot on to where we like to start. Taking a note because I don't want to have to do that math again later. All right. Time for can number 2.
So what is that note in reference to?
I'll know.
Okay.
I'm the only one that has to know. They're my notes.
Fair enough.
It's just a temporary note so that I know to add that to whatever gravity reading we get later. Though, in reality, it's all going to be approximate because these have sugars that are going to mix. So we'll have to see how far off it is from my estimated gravity to what the actual thing is. And we might have to work with both and give you 2 calculations at the end or something. Oh, you know what? There's juices in these cans.
You want to do a little
I want to swirl my... You paid for that juice.
Okay.
Well, we paid for that juice. You paid for yours. I'm just going to do a little swirly swirl. Get it in there.
Let me get the other one.
I'm going to get the other one.
Or not worry about it.
Not going to worry about that one. There's only a couple drops in each one. Just being silly. There is a point to it. I mean, you don't really want to lose it. I initially wanted to use Comstock cherry filling, but I know that has a lot of pectin in it, which we probably could have got away with, but I didn't really want to push it. And
Super thick.
there was a lot of high fructose corn syrup and stuff that I know doesn't necessarily ferment well, so I didn't want to really, I didn't want to go there, okay? All right, this one's got more juice. You like it a juice. She references that all the time, and I've never seen it.
I thought I finally showed it to you once.
Maybe.
I totally forgot already.
Okay, so we got honey, we got cherries. What we don't have is water. Let's just put like half that water. You know what? Put all the water in. Why am I not putting all the water in? Normally, if I'm using a glass closed mouth fermenter where I know I'm gonna pick it up and shake it, I want to keep it like half full so it's easy to mix. With this, I don't have to worry about it.
Today we're using the bucket and...
The spattle. It's a spoon. It's a paddle. It's both. You can get yours in the description below. I'm going to do that every single time, too. It's actually very useful, though. I've used the spoon a couple times already when I wasn't sure that I was going to when we first got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to show you guys the color of this already. Just a second. If this retains any of that color at the end of fermentation, this is going to be the most beautiful mead we have ever made. That is just awesome. And now we mix. Now this is the downside to using the white plastic bucket or black plastic bucket or red plastic bucket. You can't see inside it. I mean, right now you can tell the level, maybe it's about there.
But soon we will have a product that may address that situation.
That's right. North Mountain Supply is sending us one of their newer style of buckets that may solve that problem. But the reason why it's a problem is because I can't see if this is mixed thoroughly. And that, okay, let me just give you a little tip. First, you don't even have to mix it. The yeast will get to it, but you won't be able to take a gravity reading in the beginning that has any amount of accuracy because you won't really know. So in that case, I probably would just estimate the original gravity, like I said, and go from there. Now you might be thinking, but this is more than a gallon. And you're absolutely right, because the cherries have a lot of solids that take up space. So when I say a gallon of must, I mean must, not solids and must, just the liquid. When you're mixing this, it's okay to be a little sloppy. Slosh it around a little bit, get some oxygen in there.
Not that much, though.
You don't want to splash your partner. You want to keep the majority of it in the bucket if possible. All of it if possible, but at least go for a majority. The idea behind that is aeration in the very beginning helps the yeast to build their colony, and if they build a good strong colony, then they have a higher likelihood of finishing fermentation. So that's where a lot of stalls happen, is because people didn't aerate enough. It's also usually the cause of the sulfur or rotten egg smell that people might get, is because there wasn't enough aeration in the beginning. The good news about that, though, it ages out. Just give it some time. It'll go away. All right, one way to tell, though, is look at your spattle. I still see a little glob of honey on there. Not done. If your water is slightly warm, and I mean like blood temperature, not hot, not room temperature, just blood temperature, warm, then that'll help it mix a little bit better. It also gives the yeast a little bit of a head start. Not necessarily good or bad, it just might make them activate a little sooner. The spattle is looking clean. What do we got to do now?
I guess, is the yeast ready for...
The yeast appears to be ready.
Okay.
It's milky. Sometimes it'll make like a foam dome and all that kind of stuff. This time it didn't. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. We know the yeast is good. If it goes creamy like that, it's probably good because dead yeast don't tend to do that. I'm just going to dump it all in. We should have reserved a little bit of water because there's a bunch of yeasties in there.
Do you want to use your... this?
Oh, look at that. See? This is why there's two of us.
I was going to figure out the word for it.
The thing.
The baster. That's the word.
The poor man's wine thief. Get those yeast out of there. I mean, you paid for them. Let them fulfill their destiny and don't splash it all over the place like I just almost did.
All
okay.
Right.
So what's next? Oh, we got to take a reading.
We got to take a reading. Oh.
Don't do that. We keep the hydrometer in there because it's easier when you're filling it. But if you tip it back like that really fast, you could break that hydrometer in there. And, I call them hydrometers for a reason, but let's not encourage that idea.
What is all that?
Okay. Yet another reason not to do that. I broke our cylinder. Yep. There's a hole in the bottom.
Dear Liza?
Yep. Totally broke it. Guess we got to go back to the old one. Learn from my mistake. After the offending broken glass has been removed, new towel down, and we have a plastic cylinder. This actually is the cylinder that we used, I think, in the very first City Steading Brews video. It's way too big. Actually, it's not that bad. Okay. All right. The advantage to plastic is it won't break like that. Disadvantage is it can get scratched, discolored, and that sort of thing.
So the lesson learned here is these things are delicate, so just be delicate with them.
The problem is that's the second time I did that today, and I guess I hit it just right. It blew out the bottom of the cylinder just enough. Oh, wow. I'm thinking quite a bit of the sugars in the cherries actually did come out. So I'm kind of torn here. It should come out to like 1.097. It's sitting at 1.088. So my intuition tells me to go with the 1.096 because we may actually have a slight more than a gallon total liquids. What do you think?
Yep. Because there is liquids, like it wasn't just a can of cherries, it's a can of cherries with liquids.
Right,
We
the
have
liquids
that
had the
liquid,
sugars. There's
plus
a
that
little bit more
liquid,
sugars
plus-
in the cherry flesh itself. I think that's what we're not getting a reading on here.
Sure.
So if you're confused about what we're talking about, this reading shows the actual sugars readable in the brew, okay? My estimate of 1.096 comes into play with the sugars in the honey, the sugars in the cherries, and the sugars in the cherry juices. So that's like an unknown. It's not that different, and I'm inclined to think that my 1.096 is probably right. I don't think there's going to be that much more sugars in the flesh of the cherries that didn't come out of the juice. So we're going with that. At the end of the day, it just means maybe another percentage or two more of alcohol, even though it doesn't make more alcohol. It just, the alcohol was already there. We're just measuring it differently. Don't get crazy on me. All right, I'm gonna dump this back in. I probably should have done that a little gentler. All right, what's next?
You gotta put a lid on it.
There's
You gotta let it drip some more.
there's a good brewing song. Got to put a lid on it. So, when you get plastic buckets, look for something inside the lid. This has a seal. We've not really had much trouble with these not sealing, but a couple of them we did from time to time. You do have to really push it on.
It's a bit of a chore.
Yep. It's not too bad. Just, you got to do it. You got to do the thing, okay?
Also, if you don't notice any activity in your airlock, it might not mean a darn thing. It might simply mean that your seal didn't seal right.
Yeah.
Because buckets sometimes do that. It's
Now,
okay.
if that is to occur and you're using a bucket, don't worry about it. We've seen this come up a few times. People have asked questions about it. It's totally okay. If there's just a tiny little gap, it's not going to hurt anything. The idea behind an airlock is to keep bugs, actual like fruit flies and things like that out. I don't think they're going to get into the tiny little gap that's not making a perfect seal.
You
So
do just want to make sure that, it's on there.
I mean, ours has a seal, see?
Yeah.
If I was to push it down and hold it there, if it didn't have a seal, that would come back up, and it's not. So we probably have a good seal.
All right, where are you going to put your notes?
I'm going to stick it right there.
Right there. Okay.
Very particular about how things are oriented. But in order to put this note on here, I need a piece of tape.
Oh.
We can do that off camera. We're just going to put the note on here and let this sit. I don't think this needs to be on a lip tray. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. That's an advantage to using buckets. This will go in the ferment station for a couple of weeks. And when the airlock activity slows down to next to nothing, we'll be back to show you the next step. It's been 2 weeks. The airlock seems to be pretty well slowed. Of course, I loosened the lid already. But the airlock really wasn't going far. So let's take a look inside. Okay, let's see what it looks like inside. First, we have the optical inspection. What we're looking for here is eyeballs, teeth, things like that, hair. I don't see anything untoward. It actually looks pretty good. I'm quite pleased.
There's no fuzzy wuzzies.
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Nope. There's nothing in here that looks bad. Okay. On the smell, it's very alcoholic. And even just a little slight bit of sulfur smell, okay? Because I probably didn't aerate this enough. But you know what? We're just being honest.
It's cherries in a bucket.
But it's fine. Now what I want to do is take our first reading, because I don't think this is actually finished yet. I think it's still going.
Don't drop. Thank you.
It's plastic.
Yet still don't drop it because the hydrometer is not plastic.
Okay, I just want to get past the fruit. I know you can't really see what I'm doing here, but trust me, I went past the fruit so I can just get
Look
juice.
at that color.
Beautiful color, but it's not clearing yet.
Nope. I don't,
That tells me it might not be totally finished.
Neither one of us thinks it's done, but
This started at 1.096, so it's, a reasonable gravity. It's not super high. I know some people consider that to be a high ABV, like 13%, 13.5%. I don't really consider that to be high. That's still within the wine range. So to me, that's fine.
we can see from his sample that there's still plenty of gases in solution, which is appropriate, particularly if we think it's still fermenting. There should be gases in solution.
Well,
Oh, look at that.
it's sitting at 0.998. Okay, it's at 0.998. What does that actually mean? Because this comes up all the time. We do have videos on how to read a hydrometer, but we never really explain. It started at 1.096. I'm going to have the little graph of it here. And the number goes down towards 1.000 and even below that if it can, okay? So the lower the number, the more alcohol you've made is the gist. And the drier it is, the more sugars that have been consumed. This is technically done,
Yeah.
okay? However, I'm not going to rack it
We're going to
today.
do due diligence and let it wait.
Pouring this very carefully so that I don't oxygenate. And I just want to give this a little bit of a stir. just to keep that fruit cap under the liquid. Notice how gentle I'm being. You do not want to introduce oxygen at this stage, but I want to get everything wet. Keep it moist. And yeah, that looks really good. It smells very alcoholic, okay? Now, you might be curious. If it's at 0.998, why aren't we racking it today? 2 reasons. 1, we always say, take a reading, wait a week, take another reading. If they are the same, it's safe to rack. That's reason 1. At 998, it's pretty safe. You could totally do it. But because it hasn't cleared yet, that makes me think, let the yeast finish up, because there's things that can happen. Okay, yeast will clean up after themselves. They create some harsh flavors, some harsh whatevers as they're fermenting sometimes. Diacetyl is one of the things that they create, and they will often clean up after themselves at the end of fermentation. So I want to give this some more time. Also, so I guess this is 3. There's no rush to rack. As long as that fruit stays wet and there's no mold forming in there, which there wasn't, then there's no reason to rack early. A little bit of age is a good thing. Worst thing that's going to happen is all the yeast is going to fall out of suspension. They're going to sit on the bottom, and that's it. That's all that's going to happen. Our wine's going to be a little bit clearer. Our mead. It's a mead, not a wine. But technically, mead is a wine. But we're not getting into that. That's weeds that we just don't need to jump into.
I want to talk a little bit more about those numbers and what they mean, because Brian talked a little bit about it, but it wasn't very expansive. And we've had this in the comments before where people kind of freak out when it goes below the 1.000 number. And they believe that that's not possible. Well, it's totally possible, because the gravity reading that's equivalent of 1.000 is water. Mm-hmm. Alcohol is actually
0.79.
Yeah. So
0.079. Sorry.
Based on how much alcohol is present, it's totally easy for you to go below that 1.000 number. So don't use that as a line of saying something went wrong or something went bad, because that...
A lot of people like to say, oh, this is done at 1.000, or this is dry. Well, from a technical standpoint, it's not, okay? And I don't want to get too far, as I said, into the weeds on this, but technically speaking, 1.000 is not actually dry, because there are still going to be sugars. Because if you had, say, something that was 50% ethanol and 50% water, right? If you do that, the number would actually be like 0.80, something like that. So if it comes out anything higher than that, that means there's still sugars in there causing the density change, right?
Yeah.
And if you had, say, 10% alcohol, so we had 10% ethanol, which would be 0.079, and then we add 90% water. So if we had 9 parts water, right, that's 9. Can I do this in my head? I'm trying to see if I can do this one in my head. 9 parts at 1.000, because I'm using my calculation, is 9, plus 1 at 0.079. So that's 9.79 divided by 10 would be 0.097. So technically speaking, 10% alcohol with no other sugars would be like 0.0970, not 0.998, 0.970. That's a huge difference, okay? Yeah, you know, math, and this is the stuff that goes through my head all the time, all right? By the way, if you're wondering why I'm stirring this up, I'm degassing it slightly, but I'm also trying to eliminate any extra oxygen that might have been put in here just by forcing those gases out. CO2 is heavier than air, heavier than oxygen, so it should push it out. Should. It's not a guarantee, but it is a help. Think of it like insurance. You hope you don't need it, but if it works, sometimes it works.
So before we finish up today, which we're basically there, I wanted to clarify one more thing that I've noticed in the comments that was a misconception. We've already talked about the 1.00 line, but there's another thing on your hydrometer. If you have a triple scale hydrometer, you're going to have the potential. You're going to have bricks, and you're going to have
specific
gravity. So we always talk in specific gravity because that's what's important to us. But we've had lots of people take their specific gravity, sorry, I'm getting my words mixed up, and turn to potential. And so potential is just that potential. What could possibly happen in the future? Not what's happening right now, but based on the sugar content of your fermentation, what possibly your alcohol content can be. So I've seen some people who do that potential at the beginning when there's plenty of sugars because fermentation hasn't started.
They think they have like 15% alcohol.
And then they take their reading at the end and they switch to potential and they're like, where did my alcohol go? And that's
what they're not getting is if you can use potential alcohol as your whole reading, okay? It goes off the 131.25 constant. It does not use the more accurate 135. But if you do that, if you look at it and you say, okay, this says 15% potential and it ended at 3% potential, 15 minus 3 is 12. You have 12% ABV. It's actually a really simple way to go, and you can totally do that. But I don't think it's as accurate as using specific gravity and doing the calculations yourself.
So I hope that clarified things up and helped some people out that may be confused because numbers, they're hard for me.
And if you have problems with the hydrometer calculations or anything like that, you can always ask in the comments. We try to put out videos explaining these things, but hey, if we miss something, I'll be happy to make an explainer video going over exactly what you might need.
If you have a question, ask the question before you dump your brew. Please.
Yeah, don't dump your brew. Ask before you dump it. And you know what? This is going to go away for like another week.
And we'll see you then.
Okay, it's been about another week, and we're going to take a second reading and probably rack this. It was at 0.998 last time, so I don't expect that it changed by much. Trying to be really careful to not disturb it, because there's a bunch of cherries floating in here, and there's lees in here, and I don't want to have all that in the final product when we rack it. Let me show you what it looks like inside, though. So looking inside, we just see floating cherries, nothing untoward. Everything looks fine. I think we're good to move forward. One thing that's interesting, though, is there is a strong alcoholic smell. I smell the alcohol in this one. And it's only like 13% or so. It's not even that high, but it's definitely smells strongly of alcohol. Some of the cherries disintegrated slightly, but not most of them. And again, this is just like a verification reading of the gravity this time, just to make sure that it's done. I mean, at 998, it's pretty well done. But I like to let things clear a bit. And that color is gorgeous. Yeah, it is really did keep a beautiful color. It's actually quite clear, too, which is usually a good sign that fermentation is ending, if not done. Interestingly enough, it actually went down. It's at 0.994 now. So I still would say it's finished enough that we can rack it. And let me explain that statement just a second. Normally, I don't like to rack before it's done, okay? Now, let me explain what done means. Done to the point that I don't care if it ferments further, meaning it's so close to dry that it's fine. Any further, 2 more points isn't gonna matter, especially since once we rack, we put an airlock on that too. So it's gonna sit like that for a while. I know that's a little bit different advice than we've given in the past, but a couple people have asked the question, so I just wanted to be clear that once you get to the dry point, like 1.000 or below, it's totally safe to rack it.
As long as it's under airlock.
Yeah, as long as you leave it under airlock afterwards. In this case, I just wanted to do the verification check. Interesting that it went down 4 more points.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy.
I don't think it's going to go down a lot more, but yeah, that's where we're at. So I want to take this and pour it into our...
Then we are guesstimating on what our volume is going to be because we know the cherries are going to take up a lot of the volume that we have, and then the lease is going to take up a bunch of the volume we have. So what actual viable volume do we have? We don't know.
But I'm guessing it's a gallon or less. I did, however, save just a little bit. Gotta take a taste. It's a little boozy. It's got some blackberry flavor. Very, very dry. Now that needs to be sanitized. Yeah, it's a little, it kind of tastes like a dry red wine right now, but it's lacking a little bit. So we'll get to some flavor adjustments later on in the video. But for now, we're gonna rack this to our container.
To do that, we'll be using an auto siphon. We will have our source
higher. Destination lower.
So the destination, which is this, is gonna go on my lap.
I'm keeping the cap on because, well, there's stuff in here and I don't wanna, put it all into our container. But I am gonna try to get as much as I can out so long as we don't overflow the 1 gallon container. All right, we racked it, and that's pretty good for headspace. I'm kind of pleased with that. And I know what you're thinking at this point, but wasn't this supposed to be cherry cheesecake mead? Well, don't worry.
There's more to come.
Exactly, we're getting to it. But now we're gonna put a bung and airlock on this, and it's gonna go sit in the fermentation until this clears out a bit more, because I did get some of the lees up in there to get as much product as possible. So we'll be back in a week, maybe 2, with the next step. All right, it's been a little over a week, and because we had 2 different gravity readings, we're gonna take another gravity reading today just to make sure that it's actually done, even though it's done. We're gonna just do that to verify, calculate how much ABV we have, and go to the next step. Love the color. What I mean by it's done, we already know it's below 1.000. It's just a matter of how much more did it have left in it, if anything. You know, it's actually at 0.992. Now, I know in the past we have said, if it's still going down, let it keep going. However, because it's below 1.000, and some of the next steps that we're gonna do, we're gonna require a pasteurization at the end of this. I'm not that worried about it. It's not going to get to continue fermenting because it's really got nowhere left to go. I am, however, not going to dump this back into here because I'll just disturb all the lees on the bottom. So instead, I'm just gonna pour it right into our pitcher. This is the pitcher that we talk about all the time with the raised numbers on the side in metric and US. And yes, we will have a link in the description to get your very own. So now we're gonna rack it. After racking, we have exactly 126 ounces, like so close to a full gallon, which that's why I like to use a larger container for primary. Then when you rack it, you end up with a little bit less, because that's 2 rackings now,
Yep.
and we have pretty much a full gallon. Now we're gonna do some tasting and checking and alterations. So we're not gonna end up with a full gallon at the end, most likely. But let's just see how we do. So
Our intention is for this to be a cherry cheesecake mead. We have the mead, we have the cherry,
But-
we don't have the cheesecake.
that's right. It smells, as Derica said when we were racking it, like a wine.
He got really irritated with that descriptor, but
I said,
now,
well, what is it? How does it smell? Like a wine.
but now he understands.
It's nice. It's dry. Tastes like a good dry wine. And that's important to be able, if you can appreciate it the way it is now, that means that down the road, as we add more stuff to it, it should only get that much better.
It needs all the stuff.
Yes, first it needs some sweetening. Because
Absolutely.
without the sweetening, this is not going to be a cherry cheesecake. It won't be good. So let me get some honey. So we used Kirkland Wildflower honey the first time around. Let's use it this time too. And how much? I don't know, probably about half a pound or so, but we're gonna do our 2 taste. I'm gonna hold back a little because we have some other additions that are going to change the flavors. So I don't wanna do too much of one and then mess it up for later on. And to mix this up, I'm going to use the spattle. It's a spoon, it's a paddle, it's both, and I just totally sprayed everywhere. It's all right.
And it's sanitized.
Yeah, it's sanitized too, fresh out of turbos. When you flick it, it just really, the spoon works really, really well. When you mix, you want to be careful that you're not oxygenating. And that's where a paddle like this is great, because see those edge sides? I can keep it at an angle throughout the mixing rotation movement, whatever you want to call it, and not add extra agitation to the top.
Yeah, so you want to have most of the movement occurring at the bottom and minimize the movement occurring at the top.
Exactly. And you just want to mix until you don't see any more honey. That is just a precursor sweetening, really just to put it in the ballpark of something that might taste pretty good as I'm expecting this to be more like a dessert meat, really.
Yeah,
I'm not expecting this to be one of those like dry sipping type meat. No, this is
No.
dessert meat. This is meant to
This
be.
should be
This is candy.
candy.
Okay, this is candy. This is a dessert all in itself.
Now, do you want a measuring device? Because for sweetening, we're just going to take a gravity reading to let people know how much.
Yeah, I
But
should
for
probably do
our-
measurements of the rest.
Yeah.
Of the other additions that we have yet to speak of. I'm just going to leave the spattle in there for now.
All right.
I don't need to remove it, clean it off each time. Okay, just going to take another quick little sample. I don't think that's anywhere near sweet enough. Yeah. I don't even think it's up to 1.000 yet. I'm estimating this will probably end somewhere like a 1.020 or even a little higher, just because of, like we said, it's going to be a dessert style of mead. Well, we're going to mix this up. I'm going to grab some measuring devices. I'll be right back. And yes, we really do it this way all the time because this way we're guaranteed to not overdo or underdo. Hear it all the time. People say, oh, I added far too much honey and it's way too sweet. What do I do now? Well, how did you add too much without knowing?
Yeah.
So that's why we don't add too much at a time. That's now more into a palatable range. I think that we can start adding additions to it to see where we're going to be. We might end up sweetening it more after the fact, but right now, what do you think? It's kind of in the range. Does that make sense? Or should I make it sweeter before we start?
I think we're going to have to jump around.
Yeah, we're going to be balancing things. Now, when it comes to adding the cheesecake portion of the show, there's a couple ways you can go. We were kind of reluctant to add actual cheese to it because that's probably not going to work out very well. I'm sure somebody could figure out a way to do it. But instead, we opted for an extract because I thought, you know what? Let's make it accessible. Make this something that anybody could do. So we basically have our cherry mead, which we also have more cherries if we need more cherry, and I think we might.
Yeah.
So I found this Dolce Foglia extract cheesecake, and to smell it, you are going to be very reminiscent of cheesecake. It's kind of
Nuts.
yeah. It smells very sweet, so I'm sure there's some amount of sugars in here, and that's part of why we didn't want to overdo the sweetening in the beginning. So because I can't actually measure this after the fact, what I'm going to do is just measure how much I put in, and that way you can replicate it on your own, because we have roughly a gallon, like just almost exactly a gallon. So I'm going to start with 1 teaspoon in the whole batch, which is probably nowhere near enough, I'm guessing. And then we'll just give that a mix through.
Do you want to add the second
Yes. And because no cheesecake is complete without a graham cracker crust, we got graham cracker crust flavoring from Brewer's Best. Same idea. I'm just going to add a teaspoon of that.
For those of you who disagree on the graham cracker crust, you're just going to have to agree to disagree because Brian and I both seriously love cheesecake, and we'll fight you.
Graham cracker crust to me is how you make cheesecake. I know there's other ways to do it, and that's fine. You can have it your way. But today, this is not Burger King. This is City Steading Brews, and we're doing graham cracker crust.
We are united on the graham cracker crust front.
Now, I have seen people actually take whole graham crackers and put them into the brew. I'm a little... I don't know if that's such a great idea. I'm seeing mold happening and things like that. Granted, there's alcohol here, so it might actually work and it might be okay. I've seen them get good results with it. So we tried the extract because we were like, we're already doing a cheesecake extract. Why not just...
Right.
You know.
And the reason why we're hesitant on these things isn't just because of mold. It's because there's certain ingredients that you don't want to ferment with due to some aspects of them that may cause problems.
Right.
One of that is fat.
Yep.
Fat, whether it's oil or what other form it may be, can become rancid in this kind of situation. And that's going to kill your... Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
It's starting.
It's starting. I'm
It's
so
not,
excited.
it's not there. It's
I'm
not
so
there.
excited.
But the hints of it are there. The hints of it are already there. It needs sweetness. So I'm gonna make it sweeter. And sorry that we're acting like a couple of kids in a candy store here, but this is fun, okay? To me, this is the height of homebrewing because we're not making a commercial product. We're not trying to impress anybody. We're just trying to make something that we like that is reminiscent of a food that we really enjoy. That's all this is.
Ow.
And apparently beating up our elbows on the table.
If you ever see random bruises on my arms, it's because inanimate objects are mean to me, and I garden. Go out into the garden and come back bruised, not bruise-free.
But you can walk from the back door to the bedroom and get a bruise and not know how.
And not know how, yeah. I think I do like the bumper car trail through the
Oh,
house.
I can tell when she's walking through the house. I can.
boom,
Boom, boom, boom. Is everything okay in there? Yeah, why? No reason. I heard you coming. It's funny because it's true.
I was completely derailed on my why you don't add certain ingredients to brews because of the...
Because of fats and oils
Right.
and that's the major reasons is fats.
It was mostly fats, but there was
Yeah.
another one that I thought of, and now I can't think of it. I don't know.
It's okay. They get the idea.
I just know we get asked about it a lot in the comments.
We do.
and so I was just trying to explain.
Okay, so
There's
I
no-
sweetened it. Yeah, let's take a small taste. There's gonna be a lot of tastes here.
Oh, noes.
Yeah, it's starting to smell a little bit more A little bit more like a cherry. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Needs more extracts, though. Significantly more. So let's start with cheesecake. So this is 2 teaspoons cheesecake extract so far. Well, right now, that's 2 teaspoons. And I'm going to put more graham cracker, too. It needs a lot more graham cracker.
Yeah.
More cowbell.
I wouldn't mind it being sweeter.
It probably will be in the end. I just don't want to overdo it
Sure.
right now yet.
Sure.
All right, so let's get a quick taste on this. It's still very cherry and very mead. Could use more sweetness, like you said, but also needs more extract. So, again, another round. This one might be difficult to make too sweet. You know that?
Yeah, like this could go borderline cordial style
Yeah.
sweetness.
I'm thinking we might end up, when this goes back into a fermenter, throw the last jar of cherries into it.
Okay.
Just because. Why not? If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing.
Do you want to just put their juice in there? Or do you want the whole cherries and everything?
Oh, we could just do the juice.
That'll make it less messy.
Yeah, we could do that.
So we're on 3 teaspoons of graham
Yeah,
cracker?
this is now 3.
Of both? Okay.
3 of each. Something else that might actually help this is vanilla extract.
Vanilla, yeah.
And I'm debating on getting that. I think we're going to end up using it. What?
It just smells so good.
Yeah. Now we want to mix that up. There's honey in there too.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
You know what? I'm going to get the honey I'm going to get the vanilla while you mix it.
All right.
The reason we're saying vanilla is because vanilla has a tendency to enhance flavors that are already there in fruits, and the graham cracker part might actually get enhanced by a little bit of vanilla. So let's just put that in. What do you think? But I'm only going to do a half teaspoon of vanilla because it's pretty strong
Vanilla
stuff.
can overpower quickly.
Last thing I want to do is overpower it now. Now, I know somebody's going to be saying, why aren't you just doing this in the glass and then scale it up? It's a lot harder to actually do that because then how much should I put in the glass? Plus, after a couple of sips, how much is left versus that? Now, your mix is very, very different and harder to calculate. It's much easier to just add a little bit and add a little bit and add a little bit. Plus, you get to drink more, you know. Using the calculator teacher said I would never have handy, which I did have handy. Anyway, we start with a 1.096 minus 0.992. Times 135 gives us 14%. Now, I'm actually going to call this closer to more like 12.5 because we are diluting this pretty heavily with the amount of honey that we're adding and things like that. So, yeah, 12.5, 13 is probably fine.
We don't know for
Fighting over the spout.
sure, and these extracts
They usually have a little bit of alcohol.
probably alcohol.
They might not be though. They're water soluble. All right. So yeah, I'm just gonna call it 13. I mean, does it really matter? It's keeping its color and most of the clarity. I think it'll actually clear up a little bit when we're done. Oh wow, that's really good. Okay. I still think it needs more sweetness
Yep.
and more extracts. I think
Yeah.
it's still, yeah. Here's what it is. It's getting there. Like now you can kind of tell it's there. But I want to get to the point where it's like bursting with flavor.
I feel like it was enough vanilla, though.
Might be enough vanilla, yeah. We'll have to see once we add more of everything else.
Right.
And I know this probably just makes the video extraordinarily long, but at least this way you get the blow by blow, as it might be, to everything that we're doing to kind of get the idea.
So this is number.
This is number 4,
Okay.
which I expected to use like half of these bottles. So, you know, I think we're going to end up using more graham than cheesecake because the graham isn't really coming through yet. But we'll see.
It doesn't really give you much information. I was reading it and I'm like,
Propylene glycol. Yeah, so it's basically glycerin. Just fine. It'll add to mouthfeel too. Yeah, this one too. So they're both glycols, which is glycerin, basically. I'm really starting to smell that
Yeah.
cheesecake though.
like if the taste was exactly like it smelled, we'd be done.
Yeah. I think we're getting close though.
We are,
I think
yeah.
this is really starting to get there. I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again, but because we're adding honey to a product that may or may not be done at its alcohol tolerance, like it was 0.992, we are going to pasteurize this. I think we need another sample. Once you get to a certain point, you want to really take your time with it, live with it a little, and see what it needs. I think it could use a little bit more of everything again. Even vanilla. I think it needs more vanilla. Just another half teaspoon. So more sweetness, more cheesecake, more graham, more vanilla.
All right.
More.
We're on to 5.
There's 5. 5 of each of these. Somebody's got to be keeping track.
Probably should have done like a little hash
Yeah, we probably.
tags.
Probably. So maybe I'll write
Hash
down.
marks.
I'll write down 5 right now. As you get further in, it takes longer to mix in too, because the concentration is higher.
Yeah. The addition of the honey and the extracts is improving the mouthfeel because the mouthfeel
was kind of
was a
watery.
little watery.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Wow. That is actually really, really good. It's super smooth, but I do taste the cheesecake. I definitely taste cherry. I thought we were going to
Yeah.
add more cherry. I don't think we need to
I
add
think
more
the
cherry.
sweetness helped the cherry come forward.
Yep, the cherry is definitely there. Very nice cherry flavor.
yeah.
Really nice cherry flavor. I don't know if there's enough cheesecake and graham cracker. I don't think there is. I think we need more.
All right, put one more teaspoon of each.
That is really good. More graham. I don't really taste the graham cracker at all. But I think the cheesecake flavor is just right.
I think we're pretty darn close. So go ahead and put your one more gram in
I
there.
need more graham. I love the viscosity on it now. It's not like thick, but there's definitely a coating to it in your mouth. Feels nice, velvety. I think a last finishing touch is going to be a little bit more honey too. That's really good. Very nice. Now I get the graham cracker just kind of on the exhale and in the back, getting all the sweet and cheesecake up in the front. I don't even know that I want to sweeten that anymore. What do you think?
In the past, when we've pasteurized, I know it has changed the flavor ever so slightly.
Yeah. In this case, it'll meld things together a little bit better. There is a slight discord in the 3/4 palette for me, which is probably why you're asking me this. And that's the cherry versus the sweet, not really blending together yet.
It doesn't really take out sweetness or anything like that.
Nope.
It just rounds
It's the
things
tart
off.
of the cherry with the sweet right now that's kind of, they're,
I mean,
they're hurting. It'll blend that together.
Right. So I think we don't have to overdo something to compensate for pasteurization. That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
No, I don't think so. I think we already have an inherent thing that's going to get fixed by pasteurization. On the smell, it's cherry cheesecake.
Yep.
I even get a little bit of the graham cracker crust in there. Yeah, I think that's lovely. It's definitely a dessert mead, definitely a sweet mead. It's really nice. Let's get a gravity reading, and then we can move on.
All right. So before I grab the stuff to take our gravity reading, I wanted to say that because we added extracts that probably affected the gravity reading as well, if you're replicating this at home, you're going to want to add the extract amount first, I would say, and then add honey in incremental
Possibly,
amounts
yeah, to adjust your sweetness.
adjust
yeah.
the sweetness to get
Yep.
to
We
our
just
gravity
had
reading.
to do, but they may want different amounts of extracts too.
But if you don't want to reach our gravity reading, that's perfectly fine. Use our method of combining the things until it reaches your palette profile.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best route, to be honest.
Yep. All right, so our reading here is basically just to give you a guide as to what it ended up at. I'm guessing I was off at the 1.020. It's probably more like 1.030 or even higher, because tartness of cherries can sometimes mask sweetness a lot. So, you end up doing that. Plus, we said this is a dessert mead.
It was really interesting for me in the process of tasting how the cherry started to build simply by adding more honey.
Okay, this is a super sweet one, 1.050. I'm laughing, and somebody out there is probably going, "Really? That's disgusting." Okay, I would like,
Dessert
but I
mead.
would like to point something out too. If you drink any kind of like Coca-Cola or Mountain Dew is worse, but like Coke is 1.055. So this is less sweet than Coke.
Yeah.
So just putting it into perspective, and you can always make it not so sweet for yourself. But I don't know. There's a lot of sugar in cheesecake, so just the way it is. Pretty sure cheesecake is higher than 1.050.
The density of cheesecake.
So what we're going to end up doing with this now is we are going to put this back into a fermenter. Then we are going to pasteurize it. We have a video on pasteurization. The gist is get the internal temperature to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll put the Celsius right here for 22 minutes. Boom. That's it. We'll be back with a final tasting once that's done and it sits for like a week or two.
Yeah.
So it's been a week. We have a little bit in our glasses, and we also have new scoring system for the tasting. Now, the new scoring system has 4 or 5 categories, depending on if it's a 1 year or just a regular tasting. The first thing is repeatability. To this point, what do we think, on a scale of 1 to 5, how repeatable is this?
I am going to say it's slightly difficult simply because of all the variables.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts here. I wouldn't say it's the most complicated thing ever, but
No.
it's just a scotch.
So I'm giving it a 4.
I gave it a 4 out of 5 for repeatability. So for somebody who's had a couple of brews under their belt, this should be no problem at all. Pretty simple stuff that way. Then we're on to appearance. And for that, we look at, color, clarity. Are there eyeballs bulging out at you? Is there funny stuff floating on top? Is there stuff floating inside it?
The only eyeballs bulging out are mine right now. This is gorgeous. This is super clear. It's a beautiful red.
Yep.
I want to paint my whole house this red.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
that's
is
gorgeous.
that is beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you can kind of see where we're going with this. On a scale of 1 through 5, what score did you give?
5.
I gave it a 5 too. I mean, it's rather obvious. But the reason why we like this new scoring system, or why we're trying it out anyway, is because we can talk about each individual characteristic
So pretty.
and still stay on track, because we tend to fall off track a lot. Yeah, that's just gorgeous. Next is aroma. And this is where we're looking for...
Kidding me?
Yeah, I know, I smelled it already. We're looking for off smells, weird smells, stuff that shouldn't be there, as well as what, like, does it say what's on the box? Oh my God.
It just,
If you did not tell me someone put a drink in front of my nose and someone just wafted cherry cheesecake to me,
yeah.
that's what
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Wow, that is really amazing. I don't necessarily love using extracts for things. I really don't. But for this, I don't know how we could have replicated some of those flavors, and definitely this aroma. That is incredible.
I'm just giddy. Like,
Don't look. Don't.
I'm already circled. I'm done.
okay.
Doesn't even matter.
Let me guess. You gave it a 5.
I gave it a 5.
I gave it a 5 too. I mean, might sound like we're just being silly, but this is really that kind of amazing.
This. Okay, let's be honest. We're gonna make a cherry cheesecake mead. What? How? Why?
Yeah, we had no idea how we were going to do it.
And so, yeah. All right, now it's the big.
But
the big
okay,
time.
just to talk about the smell a little bit more. I'm getting a lovely, deep, rich cherry. The cheesecake that like.
And it's the sugary
semi-tart-
cherry. It's the syrupy
Oh, yeah.
cherry. It's the cherries you anticipate would be
cherry-
on top of a
The
cheesecake.
cherry filling stuff,
yeah.
with all the sugary corn syrup and
That's what it
whatever.
smells like.
And
then-
cheesecake.
And graham cracker.
Yeah,
I'm smelling graham cracker.
a little bit. I don't get as much graham cracker.
It's like it's fresh out of the oven graham cracker, which is
I'm definitely getting cheesecake though. That is a difficult smell to replicate without using an extract too. So that's amazing.
extract people. Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo.
And then we're on to flavor. Now, this flavor is probably the closest thing to our old scoring system that we have, because this is just, how do we like it? Do you like it at all? It goes 1 through 5 again. I say this a lot, but there's nothing wrong with that. Here is how this works. When this enters your mouth, the first thing I'm hit with is a little bit of cherry. Then I get that sweet tanginess of the cheesecake itself. And then at the end, I get graham cracker crust.
And it's even
Like, it's-
creamy in the mouth.
It's perfect. This is absolutely spot on what we were looking
How do
for.
we even do this? Some people give us some
Crap.
Some crap
Guff.
that we
Bollocks.
that we score ourselves elevated. And I would like to say perhaps they're right, because these are sweet, precious babies. But there are times,
No.
like this one in particular, where I'm just like, there's no way we're going to be able to make
you
it.
see the plum wine
Cherry
tasting?
cheesecake mead. What? This, I don't have words. Everything.
All right. I'm going to just say it. This is probably in the top 3 of things we've ever made.
And part of that is because Brian and I both absolutely love cherry cheesecake. So our our bar was already above.
Well, I mean, our expectation was low because we didn't know how to do it.
Right.
But the bar for enjoyment was high.
Sure. Like,
So
it's got to taste like cherry cheesecake. It has
had
to
a lot of hurdles to jump through to get here.
Bless your heart, you did it all. Good for you.
I'm a little surprised.
Oh, my goodness.
And our final score is what we call intent. And it's not reproducibility or anything like that. It's, does the box and the marketing and the label give you the impression of what it is? If someone handed me this and just said, this is cherry cheesecake mead, what do you think of it? I'd be like, yep. That is cherry cheesecake mead.
Yep.
Without a doubt, it matches the intent. It does exactly
Thank you, sir.
what it
May
was
I
meant
have
to do.
another?
Yeah, no kidding. All right. I didn't think this was going to happen this quickly with these scoring sheets. I know what you did too. We don't count repeatability in the total score. I got a 20. This is the third tasting we've done using these score sheets, and the first one that got a 20. Unbelievable. To me, a 20 is like an 11 on our old scale. I mean, it's that good.
So happy.
It ticks every box. Literally every box.
Literally. Like, 1 year? Who needs a 1 year? No, we're just going to drink this.
I think in 1 year it's going to be a lot smoother. It's going to be, we're saving a bottle. Okay, that's the other thing that we do from these score sheets is we put a date on it. 1 year from today is considered the 1 year, okay? So within a week or two of that time period, we will do a 1 year tasting of one bottle of this. I think it'll be the only bottle left in existence at that point because somebody's going to drink it all. Now, I will say something else too, though. This ended, we finished it at 1.050. This is sweet. This is a dessert, okay?
Yeah.
It's called cherry cheesecake for a reason.
There's no food pairings with this one.
You don't need food with this. You just put some in a glass and there's your dessert.
And you just need a little glass.
Yeah,
you don't need a big glass. You may regret that.
It's also 12 to 13%, we figured out. Something in that range.
It's lovely.
This is incredible. Absolutely amazing. So glad we decided to do this.
Me
and
too.
It was a lot of fun, too.
It was. So make this mead, and if you have any other dessert ideas you want us to create and do a beverage, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, and as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.